Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror. So today we are talking with four gentlemen that two, I am very good friends with. Two, I'm hoping to become very good friends with because I'm a huge fan of everything they've done. I have Richard, Adam, Neal, and Ed of the upcoming film Feed Me. So Richard and Adam, they are the writers, directors. Neal plays Lionel in the film, and Ed is a producer. So let's go around the table here for a second. Richard, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Dude, we have been looking forward to this since we finished the film. So we've got some notes. We are going to be digging deep on this. How about you, Adam? How you doing today, brother?
I feel fucking great, man.
And for those of you that are repeat viewers, you have seen Richard and Adam here, as Ashley and I have talked about Hosts, the film that they did, which you can also check out on Amazon Prime and streaming. If you haven't already, you should have already seen it because I've talked about it more than once. So if you haven't, I'm quite disappointed in you. Now, Neal, who plays Lionel in the new film Feed Me, how are you doing, brother?
I'm very, very good. It's extremely exciting because this is our first podcast we've done for this film. So you're very privileged to have us first. So it's all going to be fresh, not rehearsed.
That's such an honor.
Yeah, it really is.
What happened to your American accent?
We actually paid a guy from Texas to overdub a lot of my lines because it was that terrible on set. So we've actually, it's a guy called Josh Brolin that actually does, I don't know if you've heard of him. He actually does the overdub for Lionel.
A little familiar.
Yeah, it's Eugene from Walking Dead as well. They sort of shared the dubbing for me just to make sure it was authentic. So yeah.
Now that you say it, I totally hear it.
Neal's
Foghorn Leghorn.
Neal's way too modest, man. He did a banging job,
dude.
You really did.
And one thing I want to say, first off, Ed, how are you doing today, brother?
Fantastic. Just can't wait to show Feed Me to the world. So we're glad to be on your podcast.
Yeah. And it's something amazing because obviously I've had Richard and Adam here before, and these are two amazing guys that I've become good friends with. And, you know, we've been able to have conversations besides this. But I do want to say real quick, Neal, your performance in Feed Me is probably one of the best points of the film. And that's not lip service. And that's not saying anything negative about the film, but the way that you are in the film. I know Ashley was super, super impressed, and you wanted to ask him about his back and forth on the film.
Yeah, so I just think it's amazing how like you're, you know, kind of awkward, but then you like can go off the hinges and bring it back. And I just think you did such a great job with that. It was really awesome.
Thank you, actually. I really appreciate that. It's hard to hear those words because I know that we were when we were on set, we kind of knew that there was something special coming out with everybody involved, just down to the production, the cinematography, the writing, and the direction from both the guys. But it's hard as an actor. You sort of go, oh, is this good or is this bad? Because I did literally walk into that with a serious approach. We'd spoken with Rich and Adam about what we were going to try and do with this, and on paper, it's a very sinister film. It's very, very serious, but with slight comedy elements. And then, as an actor, you're told never to play things for laughs. So, at no point was I doing that. But on the first 2 days, it just sort of overtook this sort of nutty character, as I suppose you want to call him. And yeah, I'm humbled by that because it's hard to hear as an actor when you've been trying to do things for years, and to hear that it's lovely. That's so kind of you both, and I really appreciate that. It's lovely.
Yeah,
Well, you just said that
we're always our worst critics.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're just talking about how, you know, comedy, you're not supposed to play things for laughs, but I've always said that the reason horror and comedy are so close is because it's all about timing. If your joke doesn't have the right timing, it's not going to land. If your scares don't have the right timing, it's not going to land. And the way that you guys did this film, I wouldn't call this a straight horror film. I would call this more of a thriller horror with some comedy elements to it. But the comedy lands in it because the timing of it is perfect. So, Ed, how did you come into the project?
I actually was working on a different project with Adam and Rich. We were trying to get a pretty big budget movie together. And in the middle of that, they started working on Feed Me, and they got the financing together on it themselves. So they just asked, you know, would you like to come on board? We're having such a good time working on the bigger movie. And I read the script and I was like, this is really unique. So I really wanted to sign up.
Yeah. And that's something else that we wanted to say is with this film, this is a horror thriller with a splash of comedy, but really at the heart of this, it's a love story.
Yeah.
This truly is a love story, and it's a story about longing, and it's not just a story about romantic love. It's a story about platonic love. It's a story about familial love. Richard and Adam, I know you guys were writers, directors on this. What was the inspiration for Feed Me, and how much of this is close to your guys' heart when it comes to personal experiences?
You want to take that, Rich, or you want?
I mean, it was the initial idea was from Adam, so I'll let you take that, Adam.
Okay, well, it was damn, it was back in shit, when was it? Like early 2021. And Neal, Rich, and I were actually on a shoot, shooting a music video together, and like I kind of just floated the idea of saying, like, talking about, you know, the Armin news story and all that, saying it would be cool if we did something based on that. And everyone was on, but you know, everyone was digging it and everything, and like we just kind of put it on hold. You know, we were obviously, as Ed said, we were working on trying to get everything together pre-production wise for this big film that we're doing, and then later on, we kind of just collectively thought, you know what, whilst this is on the back burner, the big film, why don't we just sandwich this in and just do it? Because we haven't got anything to do for the next couple of months. Let's just do it. And we set ourselves this ridiculous task of getting it done. But I might sound a little bit full of myself here when I say this, but we're really good at getting stuff done. Like if there's something that we want to do, we'll go out and do it, man. And that's like, I'm really proud of us as a team for doing that. So that's kind of what we did, you know, like Rich and I got together and we storyboarded this this ridiculous film. We put down all the scene ideas that we both wanted to see in there, and we had this map, and then I went away and shut myself away and just put this script together. And yeah, in terms of personal stuff, there's a lot of personal things in there that I implemented from my own experiences, trauma, personal life, whatever you want to call it, relationships. And yeah, man, it was weird. It just from a script perspective, it was a really strange time. Like I'd find myself sitting exactly where I am right now. This is where I did it. Just laughing, crying, feeling anxious, feeling low. Like it was really weird, but I really, really delved into it, man. And it was cool. And then, yeah, I handed over that first draft to Rich and the guys, and they loved it, man. And then we just kind of built it more from there. And then here we are today, half dead and ready to sell it. Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that we wanted to talk about. This is inspired by real events, and
you can feel the realness, you know, how it affects other people and how it, you know, affects you, and like you can feel that in the movie for sure.
And I love that. Something you talked to me about was the emotion you feel in this movie when Jed receives his bad news at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
What bad news, Ken? If you want to find out the bad news, you can watch the film this Friday, October 27th. And
we aren't spoiling it.
Yeah,
but
we're not spoiling it, but he gets some pretty bad news at the beginning of this film.
And the emotion that you feel from him it feels genuine.
It's an emotion that we've all felt, unfortunately, at one time or another. So October 27th, this film comes out, and it'll be on streaming platforms. What streaming platforms? It's funny you should ask that, because all these men's social media links are down here in the description. So make sure you're following them on social media so you can stay up to date on what streaming platforms this will be available on. And also so you can stay up to date. They got some pretty big stuff coming up here in the future too. So they've done Hosts, they've done Feed Me, which I've covered both of. Trust me, I'll be working with them again in the future. You can count on that. So all their links are down here in the description. So make sure you're giving them a follow. Now, one thing that I feel I have to touch on, because I've had the pleasure of having Nadia and Samantha on the show and seeing them again in this film. Right when I see it, I was like, hello, officer, I know you, you know, and then obviously Liv and everything. It was amazing to see these people that mean a lot to me too. And it's amazing that you guys have your core group of people, obviously Neal, you know, from Hosts as well. How is it to be, is it more of like a comfort thing to work with the same people? And it has nothing to do with talent. Please don't think I'm saying that, because they're very talented women. Would you say it's more of a comfort thing to continue to have them on the script because you're so familiar with them and how they work? Or is it just one thing where it's like, you know what, they're just the best ladies for the job all the time?
I think it's a mix of the two. I think we're the type of people, we're very loyal people, and we with Hosts, we made a film, and we always said, you know, we kind of did that off our own back, and you know, we shot it in my own house, shot it here where I'm sat now, and got all our friends involved and stuff like that. And we always said, like, whatever works from this, we'll take forwards. Do you know what I mean? And not to sound bad, but the whatever doesn't work, we won't, type of thing. So kind of ended up a bit like that, and availability, as well as some crew that we wanted on Feed Me that couldn't make it. But in general, it was like, it's an iterative process with us, rather than kind of transformative every time with what we're doing. So we love, it's our best friends, and Adam's now in a relationship with Sam, so that makes sense. And
it all comes together now.
it's all
No,
very
I'm
incestuous. Yeah. But they're also extremely talented. Like, it's
Yes.
why change something that works so well? And because you're always putting yourself at risk of jumping to something new when something with your good friends works so well. Why
Right.
jump to something new with the risk of it not working? And that time you need to kind of get to know someone new and have that. And our sets are very kind of intimate, not in a strange way, but they're very family, like a family, like
Sure.
in the same way that we kind of live and breathe the film all together. And there's a lot of trust there. There's also the sibling, arguments and stuff that we have, but it kind of all works out. But we're all there passionately for the film. Like, no one's there just to get a buck and go home. That's like, and that's definitely not on our films, because
I think that is just like everything else. When you have a crew that you work with, the longer you work together and the more you work together, the closer you get, and you start to read off each other's emotions. And it's not just with film, it's with anything. You look at some of the best sports teams are the teams that gel together personally, because they know each other so well. And everything that you guys do, I could see that familial thing, and you can tell that you guys are all very, very close, and it's very a tight-knit group. And I think that's really special, because you look at some of the Adam Sandler's got his crew of people that he always has the same people on set, and it's because the way they gel together, it makes for a better working experience. And if you have people there that you're comfortable with and you work together well with, they're going to want to work harder for you, and they're going to want to put out the best product they can, because it's family.
I think there's always that risk as well, when, especially as you start climbing the ladder within making film and filmmaking, is that when you start, if you move up to the sort of bigger stuff, and you start to have to implement these bigger actors that you don't know what they're like to work with, you don't know what how they're gonna fit in with personality on set, and how you need to convey all the information needed. There's always a risk element there. With the money men want the big people in because they sell the tickets, which is understandable. It's a business. But then, just for example, if you pulled in someone that's known for being quite bad on set or just hard to work with, then the guys will have a really good actor, but then their time making it will be longer because of the troubles, and it's hard to do that, I suppose. So yeah, I think if you look at a lot of the big pairings like Scorsese with DiCaprio and Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, they keep working with each other because you know what you can get, and you can work around them, and you know what makes them tick. Some actors want preparation time, they need to be left alone, or they need inspiration, they need a lot of direction, and some don't need any. So it's a weird balance, really. So I mean, I just enjoy from working with hosts and working with the guys on the channel the odd time. It's just a really fun, productive environment. Hosts was so much fun. Feed Me was grueling, I'm not gonna lie. it was tough, but we all had a job, and we all, with that element of needing to get stuff done and having multiple responsibilities, we all pulled together very well, and that's what happens. You nothing worth doing is easy, I would say.
Right.
So yeah,
I think it's incredible.
Finished product too. No, go ahead, Ed.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's incredible how universally the performances in this movie are very good, all from every performance, every single person. And that's what I loved about it, working on it too, is that we really don't have a sour note in the movie. We really have an even acting level, and and Neal just cleans up. I mean, I'm amazed at his performance and how all over he goes, and yet it all feels right.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You don't ever sit there and you don't think, wow, because he's kind of goofy in the beginning, and then he's kind of a lot more funny, and then by the end he's just so serious, and so it's so gut-wrenching that it's an amazing performance. It really is. And
Absolutely.
I'm halfway
think it
through
comes out-
counseling for that at the moment. So yeah, it was tough.
I think it comes out in a finished product too. When the whole cast and crew get along together, you could tell that you could feel friction even through film,
Right.
and you could tell that you guys had a genuine good time, even though you were doing some of the darkest things. So,
I mean,
Yeah,
I just need to slide this in. Sorry, Ashley, just
Oh,
because
yeah.
I know it's extremely kind of all these kind words towards my performance, but I need to categorically state that if I wouldn't have been able to get to those levels, if it wasn't for the direction from the guys, and B, more importantly, Christopher Mulvin, who plays Jed, he's a good friend of mine, and of all of ours really, and we worked quite a lot on certain scenes beforehand over like Skype while the pandemic was dying off and things like that. But to work with him on set, he gives absolutely everything, and my forte as an actor is I do what Walken says, which is you learn your own lines and you don't learn anyone else's, because you don't have to worry about that because they'll tell you. So you just have to listen, and to listen to Jed with the screams and with the serious, like heartfelt script he had to deliver back to me. That's where my stuff comes from, is him feeding me. Oh, him feeding me.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Chris is Neil Straight Man.
Yeah, but Ed, I'm not gay.
Right. Well, another thing I want to talk about real quick with the film itself, the shots of Liv. I think that's absolutely terrifying. When you get to see all these different shots of Liv, and obviously I'm not going to get into spoiler here, guys, but what was it like to be filming these things with her as such a scary vision?
In what way?
The amount of I'm trying to think of how I could do this without being super spoilery. The minute you meet Liv, you're heartbroken. The minute that you meet Liv, as a character, you're not happy, but you still get to continue to watch her grow as a character. What was the challenges of having a physical change with Liv? I compare this very much to An American Werewolf in London with Jack. So I mean, what was it like to have that challenge of Liv with the physical changes without having a story behind what she's doing? How difficult was that to put out there?
I personally, I think that to see those scenes play out post Liv's death, when she's a manifestation of, without spoiling anything, which I already am, but when we see her post death in the throughout the film in several points, and the dream sequences, I think the reason why it works so well, at least for me, I can only speak for myself here, is because of how amazingly Samantha and Chris set up that tragic, heartbreaking situation between the two of them, both on personal levels. He's going through his own stuff, she's going through her own stuff, this debilitating thing that is causing the issue within their relationship, and it's neither one of their faults, which is kind of what resonates. This is where real life resonates, and I think that's where the relatable stuff that so many people around the world will resonate, particularly, and I won't spoil anything, but particularly the irony of the actual situation of hers going on, that is such a common thing. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, again, without spoiling anything. But so to see those things happen throughout the film, where Jed is seeing or dreaming certain things without spoiling it, is, I think, works so well because of how well that tragic love story was set up beforehand.
I think
I Want You Gone scene is just heavy as shit.
Yeah, you feel that for sure in your heart for sure.
I think what Adam says, right? Yeah, it was easy to have the rest of the film play out with the parts that you see because of the beginning. But do you know what I mean? That setup had to be right for the rest to work, and then it's only very small, couple of second bits here, there, and everywhere. But because of what's happened at the beginning, it works. Do you know what I mean? You didn't have to put that much into it. Obviously, there's a lot of setup. Like each time you see there's something different happening. and there was different complications on a production level with that, especially later on. But yeah, as far as actually the story and making it make work, I think it's all down to that beginning.
It's funny because there's a lot of that's on the cutting room floor that we, which is really something. We really had to rework that opening quite a bit when we were in post.
Oh, I bet.
And there's some scenes that are really powerful that we had to lose just for story reasons, to make the story flow better and get to the point faster. So hopefully some of those will be on our, physical media releases. You can see some of them.
I think that's one thing for sure, that we realized how important the beginning had to be. So I think we initially overworked it and was like hammering home this point, because we were like, this is such a drastic decision to make that we need to convince the audience that is the only decision he has to make. And so we had this initial cut, and the initial cut of the film was like 2.5 hours long. And we sent it to a few professionals, like Charles Bornstein, and we got back all the same information, which was, you don't need that. You don't need as much as you put in. Trust your audience. Trust that they get it. If you cut it down to just this, people still get it. And so I think it was a thing of letting go and going, actually, we're going to trust the audience, get this, and we don't need all this to kind of hammer that point. And so far, we've had a really good response from doing that, of cutting all that fat.
Sure. And I know you had a question for Ed on this one.
Yeah, so I want to just say I really love the score. You almost get like a Western feel to the score, and I just wanted to know, is this something that you worked on while you're working on the film? Did you already kind of have you knew that this was going to be your score? How did the score come about?
Well, that's actually the guys. They knew the composer, Benjamin Simons. So maybe they could answer that.
He did a ridiculously good job, man. It was tedious because there was so much we had so many ideas and opinions on what certain things should be, and bless him, he had to hear Neal and then me and then Rich and all saying these different things, but somehow, and the guy's a fucking rock star, man. He was able to take that and turn it into what you hear in the movie, and it was just amazing. And interestingly enough, correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, but this time around, because Ben composed Host as well, this time around there was wasn't really any composed music at all. It was edit the film, send it to Ben, start from scratch. Whereas with Hosts, he'd already composed quite a lot of stuff beforehand to kind of set the mood and whatever. But yeah, man, he sort of went in blind from the get-go. So
yeah, we kind of, I think the Western thing was one of the only points that we gave him, which is something that I quite like, was the idea of it being like spaghetti Western.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, but it might be spoilery, is that spaghetti Western is not American Western. And
right.
So there's a,
You had me at spaghetti.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of the vibe we wanted, was that spaghetti Western vibe, that kind of plastic Western kind of thing. And yeah, obviously intentional. So he kind of ran with that and a few iterations, and then that became kind of his theme that kind of evolved through the film. But he did a badass job, and always loved working with him. And yeah.
So I do want to say that we're trying a new diet after watching the movie.
Yes.
It's the best veal I've ever tasted. But another thing I want to talk about, I'm not going to talk about which characters. Obviously, I had to talk about one of them. It's obviously Neal. But one of the most awkward dinner kisses I've ever seen in my entire life. How was it to film that awkward dinner kiss?
So Hannah's a good friend of mine. I'd worked with her on a little production beforehand, which is where I'd met her. And she's Indonesian and a Muslim. So when it came to that in the script, we sort of thought she might come back with sort of like, it might be something that she didn't want to partake in, or could we work around it, which we were more than happy to do if it was required. But she says, no, I'm happy for it. It's required for the script. And obviously I know her and I know her husband. So it was kind of like, oh, do you know what I mean? But it's got to be done. It's strictly professional. So I suppose it was her first on-screen kiss as well. Well, it's not my first on-screen kiss at all, but it was her first on-screen kiss. So I suppose.
We can tell.
yeah, bless her. And so we just made her feel comfortable. The guys, whilst Rich was sort of behind the camera setting up how that all worked and how it would all flow with that lovely shot. I'm not going to say any more than that.
Right.
It was Adam was coming in and just sort of checked, do you need some water? Are you okay? Do you need this? Do you need that? And we're going to try and get it in one so we don't have to do it again. So I suppose, I mean, I was nervous that she wouldn't be nervous, because again, I'd hate for anybody to feel uncomfortable, and that's not what it's about. So I think the fact that it's supposed to be uncomfortable within the scene is also great, because we were bringing such nervous energy anyway. Her from I've never done this before. It's not like it's a big old passionate lovemaking scene at all. It is it's like when I suppose the first kiss ever, like kids on playgrounds. It's like you just sort of stand there and have no idea what you're doing. Obviously I'm guessing she does, but for that I think she brought that nervous energy absolutely perfectly. And I've been a big fan of her work previously with The Night Comes for Us and her other martial art films. Seeing her in a different light like that without being the scary character was great, and she really did nail every scene she was in. So bless her. I think I was more nervous than her because I didn't want her to feel awkward. Right. And then Adam coming in with like, just what did you need? It was great, and we look after everybody on our set, even though they are working 60 hours a day. But we don't work 60 hours a day just for the unions, by the way.
It is perfect. Like I said, to make sure that somebody's comfortable on set, because like you said, you never want somebody to feel uncomfortable with something that they're doing. So the fact that you guys go the extra mile to make sure that you have people feeling comfortable on your set is very special. It's very important.
It's massively important.
Being comfortable, there are scenes in there
Segue.
that make me uncomfortable, make me squeamish, and I really I like gore, like that's my thing, and this made me squeamish, like I wanted to look away. So kudos to that. Like that really was great.
Well, the one scene we're talking about,
in particular, where you hear the screams, and it definitely does its job.
What happens in the scene, Ken? Well, you can check that out on October 27th on streaming platforms, because we're not going to tell you what happens in the scene. But I will tell you that not only is it gory, it makes you uncomfortable, but reactionary makes you uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And the big question I have is, how was it on set that day filming that scene? Because it had to be you're not laughing and joking while you're filming this scene. Maybe to keep the levity there. But what was it like?
We had to.
I
mean,
I think I would. Yeah.
Oh,
it didn't feel like it when you're watching it. That was heavy shit, man.
There's
Did
a
we
few
top hosts?
different things. There's a few different things on there. I mean, that scene was actually shot over 2 or 3 different days, depending on what the part we were shooting on. So the close-up of said event was actually shot first, and very much when you see the wide of that, it's just hilarious. So I won't go into that, but it really, like, when you kind of see how it was broken down, is really not a big deal. But then there was this one time, and I don't know, Adam, if you want to tell it the bit we kind of pranked Chris with, but obviously don't go into spoilers.
All right. Okay. Shit. How do I go into this without? Okay. So something violent is about to, and painful is about to happen to Jed, Chris Marvin's character, and we're about to call action. And I go over to Rich and like whisper in his ear, and he's like, yeah. So we're like, right, are you ready? And like everyone's like, yeah, we're good to go. Okay. All right, guys. Okay. So Neal, when we call action, you know what to do, to Chris. Neal's like, yeah, man, I know what to do. So we call action.
Do you want to preface that with like, for the way that Neal is going to do said violent thing, we have a real weapon that is used as the hero and a fake one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so carry on.
That actually helps. And okay, so Chris obviously thought, because, you know, health and safety, that the fake weapon was being used, which it was, of course. But as soon as we call action, Neal kind of hypes himself up and he goes in with the fake weapon, and we all of a sudden just go, oh no, Neal! We start screaming, go, no, you've got the real weapon. And the reaction that you see, that very first reaction from Chris is a genuine, oh my God, like shit. That's
in the film.
Great.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
amazing. I love that.
And like another
And the best
little fun
part
fact.
is
Another
you
little fun.
guys figure that out and watch that scene on October 27th by following these gentlemen on social media to find out what streaming platform it's going to be on. But what's your fun fact, Neal?
Yeah, so just to touch on that scene and others, just for the record, there is actual real flesh being used, but I'm not going to tell you what flesh it is, whether it's human or not.
That is true. Yes.
And also,
Only one way to find. If
that
only they
the
made movies scratch and sniff.
It wouldn't smell good, this
we
film.
got from that scene, though, when we were doing, our editing, we were reaching out to some people, and one of the people we talked to give us notes was Charles Bornstein, who edited Halloween in the Fog for John Carpenter, and he could not get past that scene. I mean, he was like, we really wanted his, his feedback on the first part of the movie, but when he hit that particular scene, which is about, I don't know, halfway through, guys. I think it's about
I'd say
halfway
it's about
through.
the middle of the second act.
Yeah. Anyway, he could not. He said, "Ed, I'm a horror fan, but this is insane." And I was like,
I just
like,
want to say the worst part about it is I'm not obviously nothing spoiler here.
Yeah.
The pull is the worst part about it, man. Like
the twist. Oh.
Yes,
Yes.
man. It's so
Yeah.
But another thing I want to say real quick is when you guys are watching this film, please pay attention to the smaller things, because there's a lot of little things that you're going to notice throughout this film that are going to tie in together at the end on what you're seeing. So a couple more scenes we want to talk about before we let you gentlemen go. A mastercraft at building suspense is the scene with Nadia and "Can I use the loo?" Like that whole scene right there is a mastercraft of suspense, and not just with what's happening, but the camera work that's happening there too. Was that a scene that you knew pretty well from the beginning was going to be your big anxiety filled scene, or was that one like as you were at the process, like, oh, we can do this and make this even more of a, heart racing scene?
That was always planned. It was actually, so we're working on this other film we spoke about earlier, this which is what we segued into doing Feed Me. And it was funny because we were struggling with the script on that, and we were like, something doesn't work. And everyone, like, there was this idea of this bathroom scene, and I was like, I really want to put this in, but for that film it just didn't work, and it took me a while to kind of admit it, and we abandoned it. But then when we were writing Feed Me, I was like, can we fit it in here? so that's kind of where that came about, was it was actually plucked out of another film we were writing and put in, and it worked in this case. And so yeah, it was kind of planned there from. It was probably the first scene ever written for this.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, and that scene works. Like, that's one of those scenes that really stands out to you as you're watching the film. Like, because I'm somebody that loves suspense. Obviously I'm a huge horror fan. I think that everybody knows that, but you got to have a good amount of suspense in your horror movie. And that's one of those scenes where as you're watching, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. We've all been in this situation. Are we going to get caught or not?
And that last shot is Rich's Orson Welles shot.
Yes, man.
It's like it goes on for a pretty long time, but it's so cool how he did it, how he shot it.
Yes.
It
was I love it. I loved it. So we are big fans of the film, and we can't wait for you guys to check it out this coming Friday, October 27th. So I do real quick, guys. I got a couple more questions for you before I actually let you go. Everybody else, we've said it a couple times, but now we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll. The curtain is about to drop. So before it does, make sure you're following these gentlemen on social media so you can stay up to date, not only on Feed Me, but everything they have coming up in the future, because so far of the two that I've been able to review and study, they've been hits. So make sure that you are checking them out so you can stay up to date on everything they have coming up here in the future. Until next time, I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
Keep talking horror,
Say who you are.
and we'll see you guys soon.